And welcome to the Pensions Committee. My name is Peter Lawrence, Chair of this committee. Before we continue, I'll go over some general housekeeping. The meeting is held in person here in County Hall and is also being streamed live on the County Council's YouTube channel. The recordings will also be available to view afterwards. Under the Council's protocol on the use of media equipment at meetings held in public, this meeting may be filmed, recorded or photographed. Anyone wishing to do so must inform me to ensure that it is done in a way that is clearly visible to everyone present. The wishes of any individual not to be recorded or filmed must be appropriately respected. A fire alarm test is not expected during the meeting. If the alarm sounds, we must evacuate County Hall. In the event of an emergency, please make your way to the nearest exit and meet at the muster point, located in the main car park. Item 1, apologies for absence. Turning to the first agenda item, I'll ask Abby Thomas to provide us with details of any apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have received one apology today from Councillor Simon Ring.
Very good. Turning on to agenda item 2, election of the Vice Chair. I will now take nominations for the role of Vice Chair. Is there any member that wishes to make a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Brian Watkins.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you. Any other nominations? No, that's easy. Thank you. Item.
We need to do the vote.
Sorry, we need to do the vote. I beg your pardon. So, show of hands for all in favour. Thank you. That's okay. The vote is now carried. So it's Councillor Watkins, you're duly elected to the Vice Chair of the Pensions Committee. Thank you. Thank you. Item 3, the minutes. The next item on the agenda is to agree the minutes from the meeting held on the 10th of March. Do members have any comments about accuracy they would like to raise? No? Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was present at that meeting and certainly reading through the minutes, they seem to be a true and accurate record of what took place on that day. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Next item is declaration of interests. Can I ask members if they have any interests they wish to declare, please? Go ahead, please.
I'm a recipient of the Norfolk Pension Fund. I'm a member of the Norfolk Pension Fund.
I'm applying to join the pension fund.
Very good, thank you. Okay, thank you. Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I am an active member of the pension fund.
Very good, thank you. Any others? I think I've got everything. Thank you, that's brilliant. Item 5, Administration Report. Turning to item 5, Administration Report, Glenn, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and welcome everyone. You will probably find this committee a little bit different in terms of the presentation of some of the reports, some of the items on the agenda. We do use a slide presentation. It's something that we adopted during COVID. We find it really helpful in the presentation of not only the recommendations, but also the report highlights themselves. So the next few slides are the highlights in terms of item 5, the administration report. And as we go through the report, happy to take any questions. But start really by saying, so item 5, page 11, this is our administration report. It's a quarterly update, so a regular item on pension committee agendas. We like to share with you the national LGPS landscape and also local operational and service delivery updates. The report, as you'll see from this slide, is for your consideration and noting. There are, just running through, internal audit report, policy updates, and a number of admission agreements. So, moving on in terms of some of the highlights to share with you, we're now on page 12 in terms of your committee papers. We start with the National Reform Agenda. So the Pension Services Act 2026 received its royal assent on the 29th of April. Now that act is particularly important for the LGPS, the Local Government Pension Scheme. It will introduce a number of reform measures. They are to be introduced through two pieces of secondary legislation. One is specific to LGPS pooling, management and investment of funds. The other, LGPS governance. So, having received royal assent, we are still awaiting that secondary legislation, and that's expected by the end of this month, the 30th of June. Alongside the legislation regulation will be statutory guidance, the actual details around the implementation of many of those new regulations. In terms of progress around implementing the government's Fit for Future reforms, we have a detailed update from the LGPS Central Pool under item 11 on today's agenda. But just to note, in this report, we became a shareholder of LGPS Central on the 1st of April in accordance with the government's deadline. Along with the other 14 LGPS Central Partner Funds, we are now establishing the governance framework for the pool, and that will see shareholder, client and oversight arrangements put in place. We should also note that work continues in terms of the orderly wind-up, the exit of our old investment pool, which is the Access investment pool. And we will say more on that in terms of item 11 on today's agenda. The second part of the Fit for Future regulations being governance arrangements. The government is keen to strengthen governance arrangements of LGPS funds. We've made good progress. Following committee approval in March, we appointed an independent person. Clifford Sims joins us today. Clifford's role is to support both Pensions Committee and the Board, providing independent professional support and challenge. Think of Clifford's role as a non-executive director or professional trustee. The report on this slide also gives some updates in terms of other reforms, access and fairness, access and protection. These impact on member benefits and employer participation in the main. A number of these are being phased in and are also retrospective in nature. Some are retrospective. We also mention local government reform, so devolution, so Norfolk and Suffolk devolution programme is currently on pause, but we note within the draft statutory guidance that Norfolk Pension Fund, Norfolk County Council, is the designated fund for the new Norfolk-Suffolk Mayoral Authority. Local government reorganisation, it was at the end of March that the government announced its Minded to decisions. That will see the creation of 3 unitary authorities, and we list in the report some of the implications for the fund. The most important of those is the determination of the new administering authority for the Norfolk Pension Fund. Moving on to some other highlights. Attached at Appendix A is the internal audit report. This is for the financial year ending 31st of March 2026. Internal audit services are delivered by Norfolk Audit Services. And the programme of internal audit that they deliver for the Norfolk Pension Fund amounts to around about 80 person days. The attached report, describes the coverage and the rolling programme of works. Within that programme, they will look at our 4 service areas as a pension fund, so governance, funding and investment, pension services, and LGPS frameworks. And the audit programme will typically cover areas deemed to be of high risk, such as accounts payable, accounts receivable, and then other ad hoc work on a rolling programme. But pleased to report that the overall assurance for last financial year was an acceptable rating by our internal auditors. Moving on, policy reviews. Our updated and refreshed cyber and data security strategy is actually presented below the line in the exempt part of the minutes for sensitivity and security reasons under item 10. But attached to our administration report is a new code of conduct for the Norfolk Pension Fund. Previously, we have relied on the County Council's code of conduct, but best practice and pensions regulator is that we, as a fund, we own and share with you our own code of conduct, and that's attached at Appendix D. And for those members who have attended the induction training, we've also shared that as additional resource and learning material. Just to highlight some of our scheme communications over the last quarter, we publish twice a year a retired members newsletter, both in the spring and the autumn. We've just, or at the end of March, we issued our spring edition of Prime Time. We always try to put relevant articles in there, so there was articles in the March edition around the annual pensions increase, articles on taxation, how to approach changing banks and how you should notify the Norfolk Pension Fund, how to avoid scams and things like that. And again, in the last quarter, we've also undertaken some employer communications. We published our regular employer newsletter at the end of March. That covered topics such as the end of the valuation, triennial valuation, and employer contribution rates for the next 3 years. We also issued a special communications to employers in April, and that was regarding employer responsibilities under the new Access and Fairness reforms. And then finally, just to note that in July, 8th of July, we have our next employer forum. We offer this to all our participating employers, over 400 employers in the scheme. We deliver a hybrid, so face-to-face in person, but we also broadcast that over Teams for those employers who wish to join that way. Next item I just draw your attention to. This is something I talked about during the induction morning. And again, this is a new requirement for pension committee members under Fit for Future and the governance aspects of that, good governance, strengthening governance. And that is the ongoing requirement for members of Pensions Committee, along with our Pensions Oversight Board and us as officers, to maintain and evidence knowledge and understanding. So the induction morning was an example of that knowledge and understanding. You will find that pension committee agendas will often have presentations to support items. That's also another means of training and understanding. We will also share with you from time to time relevant conferences and seminars, should you wish to attend. And we will, in the coming weeks, share with you the LOLA, which is LGPS learning platform hosted by Hymans Robertson. It's been refreshed and updated, and we will share with you log-on registration details for you to explore that learning portal. And finally on this slide, just to mention the works of the LGPS national frameworks. You'll recall from the induction morning that the Norfolk Pension Fund hosts the national LGPS frameworks. They are non-for-profit procurement frameworks hosted for the LGPS by the LGPS. They are a great example of collaboration, and they have delivered over the last 10 to 12 years significant efficiencies and savings for the LGPS community. And I think with that, Chair, if that's okay, I'll just hand over to my colleague, Alex Younger, our Head of Funding and Investment, just to talk committee through the admission agreements. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Chair. What we have here is a pretty standard item within the administration report where the committee notes applications for admission. These are almost exclusively from those contracting with larger scheme employers. 7 is quite a good number, I will concede, but what we are looking at here is applications largely in respect of contracts that have been let by Norfolk County Council, plus one for the Clarion Corvus Trust, which is a multi-academy trust. So if I run through them in order, the first one we have up there is the Clarion Corvus Trust for Infinity Education Limited. That is an IT supplier to the trust. The second is Kia. Kia are the new contractor, as many of you will be aware, on the Norfolk County Council Highways contract. That's a second generation contract. So although these staff haven't transferred directly from the County Council, they've come from the preceding contractor, Tarmac. In this instance, the protection that they have carries through multiple generations of those contracts, and there is a need for an admission that's solely in respect of those staff that had retained LGPS membership from the original contract let. We then see 5 contracts which are related to the housing with care element. The housing with care contracts have been let to 2 separate contractors, but the structure of the admission agreements requires that each admission agreement follows the contractual structure. So should one contract, typically a lot as described in the procurement processes, come to an end early, what we don't then do is undermine the basis of any individual admission agreement. So we can cease the admission at the point that any individual contractual lot changes. They are, as you can see, divided regionally across the county, and the 2 contractors in place are GP Home Care Limited, which has a couple of them, and the other one is, sorry, forgive me, Universal Care Services, which actually trades, the branding you'll see, should you visit any of those projects, is trading as Care Watch. But that is to present those admissions to committee for noting, and if there are any questions on any individual aspects of them.
Does the committee have any questions they wish to ask about the presentation? Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Chair. First, if I just may touch upon governance. It's mentioned in paragraph 2.8, and echo what Glenn has already said by welcoming Clifford to his first meeting of the Pensions Committee here today, and we obviously all look forward to working with you in the times ahead. Could I also ask, obviously the paragraph talks about the good progress that is being made against the government requirements set out by the government. Is there anything further that, you know, are there any other new requirements at this stage, Glenn, that we need to be made aware of as a committee? My second point relates to the internal audit, which is featured in the Appendix A. Obviously, that report mentions that the internal audit work is planned to cover high-risk areas where perhaps our controls may need to be tightened, and I was just curious as to whether there are at this stage any particular control systems where perhaps need tightening and perhaps are a little bit weak at the moment. I know you said that the audit area covers 4 different service areas, but perhaps if you could just elaborate on that, please. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you for those questions. So we are well positioned. We are, if I can use these words, ahead of the game in terms of Fit for Future reforms. You will recall that we actually brought a paper to the March committee seeking committee approval to proceed. So just to recap on 2 really important ones there. One was the appointment of the independent advisor. The other was to align the or make constitutional changes to recognise that the Director of Pensions position was the senior LGPS officer. So both independent person, senior LGPS officer will feature in the regulations at the end of this month when published. And when I say we're ahead of the game there, LGPS funds have until December to implement and make those changes. Okay, so we've made good progress there already. 2 or 3 other areas, examples that the Fit for Future reforms will introduce and that we will be working on over the next 6 to 9 months. I think the first of those is a refresh of our investment strategy statement, and we will be working with the Central Pool. From the 1st of April, Central Pool are the advisors to this Pensions Committee. So we will be working with LGPS Central to refresh, revise and update our investment strategy statement. That's being aligned to the significant task of planning the transition of our assets, moving those assets from the access pool, as the access pool is wound down, to LGPS Central. But that also, the Fit for Future reforms do require all LGPS funds to refresh and revise investment strategy statements. The other piece of work that we're working with Central on at the moment is the governance and oversight arrangements of the LGPS Central Pool as partner funds. There are 15 partner funds within the LGPS Central Pool, and that is a piece of work that's still being worked on, but falls under the pooling element of Fit for Future to ensure the pool has good governance. And then finally, this one's a little way out, but I will bring it to committee's attention. Another requirement of Fit for Future, again aimed at strengthening fund governance arrangements, is the need by 31st of March 2028 to carry out an independent governance review. Now, that's going to be new. All LGPS funds must commission, deliver and report upon a review of their funds and the funds governance arrangements by that date. So we really want to see the guidance on that before we start to think about commissioning that as a piece of work. The draft statutory guidance we've seen does highlight some of the areas that these governance reviews will be considering. But that's something that we will, once we've seen the guidance, made sense of that, be bringing back to committee in terms of how we move that piece of work forward. But think of it as an external inspection in terms of how we are performing, how we're measuring up in governance terms. So I think they're the ones that I would bring to your attention. In terms of internal audit, control systems, are there any high risks that I need to bring to committee's attention? No. The audits use a RAG rating, so red, amber, green. For all audits completed last year, they were all green, hence the acceptable rating. There were findings, but they did fall within that green low-risk categorisation. And the audit requirement there is that management take actions to just address those audit findings, and they are then revisited by audit to make sure that we've done so, but no high risks that we need to bring to committee's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we had a question from Hannah, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you very much. I've got a question about local government reorganisation, and it mentions that a new administrating authority will need to be identified, and I'm wondering about the process for identifying that authority and the criteria that will be used for choosing it.
Okay, so we understand it will be the new shadow authorities, the 3 new unitary authorities that will determine of those 3 which one is the administering authorities. Failing that, there is an option for the Secretary of State to intervene and make that determination. The other option that has been discussed, so as a pension fund we are participating in the finance work stream. So there's a number of work streams across all district and county services. We are participating in the finance work stream. That finance work stream is in its discovery phase at the moment. So all ideas and all options being put on the table, discussed with our district colleagues. I understand in the design phase, options will be put forward. So for the Norfolk Pension Fund, those options being left to the Secretary of State to determined by the 3 shadow authorities, or there is a third option, which is a single-purpose pensions authority. Now, there is one example of those that is been active for a number of years, and that's South Yorkshire. And recently, MHCLG has given permission for Surrey Pension Fund to become a single-purpose standalone authority. So we as officers will put those options forward during the design stage, but our understanding is the options, the recommendation, or the options coming out of that design phase for all county council and district services, where determination is needed, that will be put to the shadow authorities, and for the administering authority for the pension fund, that will be a shadow authority decision. So that's our understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You say independent governance review of the funds by March 28. Who would be that independent reviewer, and how is the reviewer chosen, decided?
Okay, a good question, and that's, I said we were awaiting the final guidance. We understand, we've seen the draft guidance, and the draft guidance, and forgive me, I haven't got the words in front of me, but can be undertaken by firms, organisations with proven experience in LGPS. So for us, that gives us a pool such as the likes of Hymans, Mercer, Aon, Barnett Waddington. You know, they are all delivering actuarial investment governance, particularly governance. So those firms that can demonstrate good governance expertise. So that's the kind of pool. Consultancy with expertise in governance, proven experience in the LGPS. However, the draft guidance did go on to make some stipulations and said, but you couldn't appoint an organisation where you have a current relationship. So we're waiting, and there was various other notes and comments around that. So we're really waiting to see what the final regulations and guidance actually says around that. But that's our understanding, to actually contract with an organisation, proven governance expertise in the LGPS, but not an existing provider. But that's the draft regulations.
Can I ask us,
Please.
so, and that decision, or the final decision, how will that be made? I mean, will it come to this committee?
We need to think that through. So on one of the slides I presented today, our colleagues in the LGPS procurement frameworks team, they are working with other LGPS funds and looking at setting up a procurement framework, a procurement pool for such advisors. So they will look at the regulations, determine the scope of those independent governance reviews, and will hopefully have a process in place where individual funds, including ourselves, can use that framework to select and appoint an organisation to undertake the work. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Butler?
Yeah, forgive me if I've missed this. It's just relating to the new admissions. Have we covered carefully the employer covenant in relation to default, and also clearly we must have exit provisions? I'm just wondering about where liability, because NCC is, you know, arguably a much bigger organisation backed by the government, whereas, you know, smaller employers taking on staff. I know the numbers are small. I just wondered if you could, because I'm new to this, so if you can just give me the reassurance on that.
And I'm going to pass over to Alex, who knows all the ins and outs and details, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the first thing to say is that all of those new admissions are on what we call a pass-through basis, which essentially means, and the words are something to the effect of, any matters of surplus or deficit within those participations in the fund remain the responsibility of the body that let the contract. So for the majority of those we saw on the screen, Norfolk County Council, and for one, the Multi-Academy Trust. That essentially means that at the end of the contract, we don't assess whether there is a surplus or a deficit. Those contracts roll back into the larger position of the letting body. You will possibly come back to me and say, well, that's going to be complicated under LGR, and I would agree it is, but those contracts will have to be allocated out, so we would expect the admissions to follow where the contracts end up, be that central, east or west. So we believe that actually the risk within the individual contracts is exactly the same as the risk that pertains to the body that let them. So Norfolk County Council, as you've discussed, really strongly covenanted as an organisation. Equally, multi-academy trusts, because behind a multi-academy trust sits the pensions guarantee of the Department for Education. So essentially a national government guarantee on those liabilities.
Thank you. Councillor French, did you have a... Okay, Councillor Hannah, thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned, and apologies in advance if it's an obvious question, but you mentioned the investment strategy statement that would be developed in conversation with LGPS Central, and I was just wondering at what point this committee would have sight of that statement and an ability to input.
So we anticipate the regulations will say that that exercise must be completed by 31st of March. And our intention would be to bring a draft of that to December committee.
Okay, so turning now to the recommendations, which we'll take one by one. Please show your approval that we have noted the information in the recommendations by raising your hand. Point 1, note the internal audit report for 2025 to 2026, Appendix A. Agreed. Show of hands on that. Thank you. Point 2, note the updated policies. Agreed. Just a show of hands, please. Thank you. And the third point, note the emission agreements in respect of Infinity Education Limited, Clarion Covers Trust, Kier, Norfolk County Council, Housing with Care, Norfolk County Council, Norwich, Housing with Care, Norfolk County Council, North of Norwich, Housing with Care, Norfolk County Council, South Norfolk, Housing with Care, Norfolk County Council, North and East Norfolk, Coastal, and finally, Housing with Care, Norfolk County Council, West Norfolk. Agreed? Show of hands, please. Thank you. Now, item 6, we turn to the update from the Pensions Oversight Board. It's an update from the Pensions Oversight Board. Glenn, would you introduce the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, item 6, page 38. Just one or two things to say on this report. The Chair would normally ask the independent chair of the Pensions Oversight Board to present this particular update. I'm doing it today for reasons that will become apparent in a moment. But just to say a few words about Local Pensions Board, and our Pensions Oversight Board is an example of that, introduced by Public Services Pensions Act 2013. The board is made up of equal number of employer and member representatives, 3 and 3, plus an independent chair. And the role of the board is really to assist the administering authority with its governance and administration. It's often called a critical friend of LGPS funds, ensuring that the fund is well run and governed. So this report that you have in front of you today is an update on the Pensions Oversight Board meeting of the 2nd of June. An update was given on membership, and it was reported that our independent chair, Brian Wigg, had stepped down. So the independent chair seat is now vacant, and arrangements must be made for recruitment to that particular role. I'll talk more on that later in the report. And we also have a vacancy for a non-precepting employer seat as well. But the board did have an opportunity on the 2nd of June to welcome Clifford Sims as independent person. And Clifford will, going forward, not only have a relationship with this Pensions Committee, but will very much have a relationship with Pensions Oversight Board as well. So, updates from that 2nd of June meeting. Board discussed the March Pensions Committee, including the approval of the POB budget. There is an update from officers on national reforms and some operational updates as well, and we list those there, including triennial valuation, access and fairness reforms. As part of the board's ongoing programme, they were given an update on cyber security arrangements. They saw a draft of the updated and revised cyber strategy, and also an update on risk management. So going forward, the board's work programme will include progress against TPR's general code and that cyber security oversight. And some of the other topics that were noted for possible inclusion in the board's programme going forward were the Fit for Future reforms, communication refresh, LGPS frameworks, pension dashboards, overview of internal audits and the audit plan delivery, and that risk management frameworks as well. And there was also a discussion around POB and their maintaining of appropriate knowledge and skills, and discussions around the refresh and updating of Lola, which is the online learning platform. So on to the independent chair. So the role has significant benefits, not only to POB, but also to Pensions Committee and ourselves as officers, and has played a really important part supporting the board's role and the board's programme of work, and adding value to our activities as a pension fund. So it is important, and included in today's recommendation is specifics in terms of how we move forward with the advertisement, the selection and the recruitment to that vacancy. So
Very good. Any questions on that part, please? Brian?
Thank you, Chair. I can't remember whether at the March meeting that we acknowledged Brian Wigg's service as Chair of the Pension Oversight Board, and indeed his involvement and service to Norfolk Pension Fund as a whole, which I think stretches back a very, very long time. He was one of your predecessors, I understand, Glenn, going back many years. So I don't think there was any recognition of that. I may be wrong, but certainly at this stage, I'm sure that we will all agree that we wish Brian Wigg well in his retirement and thank him for his service to this committee and Norfolk Pension Fund over many years. We are extremely grateful. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Brian. I've got that as a next item on the agenda, so, but it's fine. It's point well made. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Davis, thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's just a point of clarification, really, where it says on the forward work programme 1.31, it's got communication strategy refresh. Is that with members? Is that how we engage with members? Is that what's meant there?
With all stakeholders. So members, employers, committee. It's a document again that is a requirement for LGPS funds to develop and maintain. We're in the process of updating, and when done so, we'll certainly bring a note back to this committee, but we're working with board on that. Thank you.
Okay, no other questions. So turning now to the recommendations, which we will take one by one, please show your vote by way of raising your hand. First point, the Pensions Committee is invited to note the contents of this report. All those in agreement that have noted the contents of the report, please raise your hands. Okay, very good. Any against? Any abstentions? No. Okay, thank you. Second point, to reiterate your figures comment, Councillor, note that Brian Wigg has stepped down as an independent chair of the Norfolk Pensions Oversight Board, POB, and record the committee's thanks for his contribution and support for the last 6 years. All those in agreement, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No. Third point, delegate to the Director of the Norfolk Pensions Fund in consultation with the Chair of Pensions Committee authority to make arrangements for recruitment of an independent chair. All those in agreement, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So the next point on the agenda, number 7, draft pension fund accounts. Charlotte, would you like to take the lead to introduce the report, please?
So you get a brief introduction from me, and then Charlotte, who's actually done all the work on these accounts as the pension fund accountant, is going to run through some of the detail.
Thank you.
So this report presents two things. Firstly, the draft accounts of the pension fund as at the 31st of March 2026, and secondly, the provisional audit plan prepared by EY for those accounts, so to provide that third-party assurance on them. Just as a reminder to committee, these accounts have two functions. One, they are included in our own annual report, which the committee can expect to see at their September meeting. And secondly, as is required, they are incorporated as a disclosure item into the accounts of the administering authority. The administering authority's finance team already have a copy of these and are incorporating those in the publication that is required by the end of this month. But with that, to deal with the detail, I will pass you over to Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Chair. So for those I'm yet to meet, I'm the pension fund accountant that works with Norfolk Pension Fund, reporting into Alex within his team within the organisation. So the draft pension fund accounts have been prepared for 25-26, and we're pleased to bring to you today some of the highlights from those accounts. You'll see that contributions have increased to 210 million from the previous 205 million. Benefits have increased marginally as well, just up to 211 million. We noticed a small decrease in investment income to 104 million, but this still sits at a really good level. And realised and unrealised gains increased significantly to 427 million, just reflecting the market performance over that period, which has ultimately contributed to our closing net assets increasing to 5.97 billion. If we move on to the next slide, I'll just set out how we split some of those assets. So this focuses on our investment assets, those managed by the Access Pool, and these are within the authorised contractual scheme. We have around 49.5% of our asset base sitting within this area. We also have some investments that are managed by the Access Pool but are external to the authorised contractual scheme, which sit at 16.1 million, and these tend to be sort of more private market style assets that have now got an access overlay to them. And finally, investments managed outside of the Access Pool is 34.4% of our asset base. Apologies for the reference to Access there. Obviously, these accounts are looking backwards, so you'll see references in terms of pooling now to the Central Pool. We're working with Central to onboard these assets to their pool. So these are assets that have been managed in a pool environment under the previous Access framework. If we move to the next slide, please. In terms of the timetable to bring you the accounts today, you can see that we have a very challenging timetable to be able to produce the draft annual accounts, to be able to share these with Norfolk County Council, and also to bring them to you today, to prepare those just before the end of May. These were prepared this year to the 22nd of May. And they will be available for public inspection as part of the Norfolk County Council accounts under their statutory timeframe of the end of June. Our external audit fieldwork has already started, so EY are already working with us on the current year audit, and we are continuing to work with them as officers across all departments of the fund. We expect that the review of sale price adjustments will be completed between August and September, and this reflects again those private market assets where it can take 2 to 3 months sometimes to actually obtain the valuations for these assets, because there are unobservable inputs which go into creating these valuations under fair value. Pensions Committee will receive the annual report and accounts at your September meeting on the 15th of September. The annual report is a significant document that sits alongside the annual report, the statement of accounts, that gives more context to these and provides a great overview of the fund for anyone who's interested as a reader of those accounts. Audit Committee to approve the accounts is still to be determined and typically sits around Q4 of the year, but we will work with NCC to determine when that is appropriate. For committee's benefit, we do rely on the Norfolk County Council audit decision being signed at the same time as the pension fund. So although you may hear that the audit work is complete on the pension fund audit, we do have to wait for sign-off alongside the NCC accounts. And the publication date that we are held to within statutory timeframes is the 1st of December. So we will either publish a draft version on our website at that point, or if available, a final version of the accounts with appropriate audit sign-off. Moving on to the next slide, please. And slightly more focus on that provisional audit planning report that Alex had mentioned. So this is a report that we receive from Ernst & Young, our external audit team. The key areas of this to look at are the audit risks and areas of focus. These are standard audit risks and areas of focus for similar organisations to Norfolk Pension Fund. There's a presumptive risk of management override of controls, which is present on all external audits. The level 3 investment valuations. These are specifically looked at because of the fair value hierarchy and the fact that there are unobservable inputs which go into determining the appropriate valuations, but we do rely on our investment managers and challenge where appropriately on those valuations to ensure that we have full information there. And finally, the IAS 26 report, which is prepared by the actuary, which sets out the actuarial present value of promised retirement benefits for the organisation, and these are also included as disclosure notes within the accounts. Our materiality threshold for this year's audit is 55 million, with a performance materiality of 41.25 million. Audit differences under 2.75 million will be deemed trivial, and these are set by the auditor when considering audit adjustments within the accounts that are needed. To note on the team this year, there are significant changes to the team. However, Natalie Clark, the new audit partner, is being supported by David Rigler, who was our previous audit partner, to ensure consistency and also to allow the quality review of the audit to take place with someone who has experience within the team. Oliver Toby Adeji is our senior manager for the year. He's previously worked on the audit in his previous roles and is returning to us as a manager in this instance. And Fizza Javed, lead senior, was also present in the audit last year. So we do have some consistency within the team and recognition of obviously the Norfolk Pension Fund within that. Once again, EY will be using the Pensions Asset Centre of Excellence. This is a team that they have developed who focus solely on providing assurance for the assets that sit within pension funds. So you'll see this common across some of their audits. So for example, I think Suffolk are still one of their audit clients as well, also have this Pensions Asset Centre of Excellence. And this allows them to leverage economies of scale when completing the audit and have a highly specialised team looking at those asset valuations. To highlight to you as well, within the report, you'll also see the final audit results report from 24-25. The audit opinion for Norfolk County Council was signed on the 13th of May 2026. So this is the first opportunity to bring this to your attention. However, a previous version of this draft report was shared with committee in March, and this is just the final version for reference. On to the next slide, please. The other area of focus for the team over the period has been the employer financial reporting. So 24 IAS 19 and FRS 102 reports for fund employers with a year end of 31st of March 26 were prepared. They've been reviewed by the fund and we're in the process of sending out final versions of those reports for those employers to include within their accounts. The annual report, as I've mentioned, will be presented to you in September, but for your reference, this is based on the 2024 guidance from the Scheme Advisory Board. So this will be the third year that we are implementing the guidance under the Scheme Advisory Board framework. And we're confident once again that we can meet all of the requirements as we have done in previous years. And to the next slide, please. And back to yourself, Chair, for questions.
Thank you, Charlotte and Alex and the team there. Do we have any questions for Charlotte, please? Yes, sorry, my eyesight is terrible at the moment. So, Councillor Dayes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't pretend to fully understand level 3 investments evaluations, so apologies, but you did say in terms of being able to actually fully understand those investments within those. Can you just explain that a bit more? Just expand on what you said there, if that's possible. Thanks.
So under the accounting requirements, we're bound by fair value hierarchy to report on those investments, so that's got separate levels. In the accounts, there is a description of that, so you can definitely refer to that, but if you've got any further questions, then please do let me know. But essentially, your level 1 investments are sort of your quoted equity products where you have observable pricing that is live pricing. So it's on a stock exchange somewhere, you can check what the price is day to day. Level 2, it begins to get a little bit more complex. You might have some observable inputs and some unobservable inputs. So there's a range of assets within the fund. So bonds, for example, might rely on different pricing mechanisms in terms of looking at coupon rates and things like that. And as you move to those really complex arrangements, so things like private equity, but also private debt, environments where we don't have public information available and we rely on the fact that we're employing managers that have a really detailed knowledge and can work with those underlying investments to make sure that we are valuing them appropriately. It just takes a little bit more time for that information to feed all the way up the chain back to us. It goes through lots of rigorous testing with the investment managers, and we review that within their control reports, and then ultimately that comes to us, and we do take reliance from the investment managers, but we can also challenge those investments where appropriate. So you'll see that across a variety of assets within the fund, particularly within that private market space.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Watkins, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 4.2 on page 46 refers to the employer financial reporting dates, of which there are 4 during the course of the year. It goes on to say that the August exercise has grown significantly in terms of workload because more schools applying for academy status. My question is there anything we can do from a resource perspective to deal with the added pressure of that August deadline? And is it, in your view, a trend, schools applying for academy status, is that trend likely to continue into the future? Thank you.
I think we'd certainly say we've seen a slowing of conversion of schools within the county, and the other trend is that schools have tended to convert into existing multi-academy trusts. When this first started, I think a lot of people thought we'll go it alone. I think that's tough. I think there are benefits of scale. What the appropriate scale is, I wouldn't comment on, but I think if you're running 1 or 2 schools with all of these obligations that we've talked about, you need an awful lot of resource to do that. So I think we find that's quite slow. We have worked really closely with colleagues at Hymans. So for example, whereas historically we used to write to people and there's a long tick list, because there are different things you can do within these accounting reports, and we can't tell you how you should account for your pension liabilities. You have to get an understanding, both as your internal finance team and more particularly with your audit team, on how that works. But through the use of the Hymans portal, we've managed to automate a lot of that process, which has been a really, for our team in particular, a really good and straightforward way, both of getting information quickly, but also holding a really robust audit trail from a multi-academy trust to say, well, we've prepared it as you asked for it, and here's how you did that, because we have historically had some issues saying, well, I didn't want it like that, I wanted it like this, but it's very clear within that how you wish to approach this reporting. So I think it is manageable. Like everybody, we're trying to embrace ways to make that more efficient. I think one interesting trend that we are just starting to talk about is the ability to, if you're a multi-academy trust that participates across a number of LGPS funds, and we have examples of trusts that have got a few schools in Suffolk, a rump of schools in Norfolk, and perhaps some that go up into Cambridgeshire. As it would stand at the moment, as an employer, you get a minimum 3 reports. If you want to report at a school level, which some still do, perhaps 30 reports. But the ability to bring that reporting together and host it through one actuarial relationship and then provide perhaps, as I think most directors of finance at multi-academy trusts are coming around to, a single report that covers all of that pension obligation. It is not without complexity, but I think that's probably the next win in terms of a benefit to the employer, but it's all possible through the sort of greater automation that we've established in that system. Does that cover everything? Sorry, I can talk endlessly about it, obviously. But,
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor French.
Yes, I noted earlier that there was a contraction in investment income, which I think was the only contraction. Can I just ask, I presume that that's due to markets and turmoil over in Iran, etc., but can anybody, or has anybody addressed or looked at that, the reasons why? Thank you.
It fundamentally arises from changes in the asset mix, and that's both within what we're holding, but also the type of vehicles we hold. So the fund is not currently managed for income because, and it does change this year, and this is something that the committee will hear more about. We haven't fundamentally required specific income because we have had more contributions coming in than benefits paid out. So essentially we can run the payroll based on the money we've paid and everything else remains undisturbed and invested. That trend changes quite markedly, certainly in the financial year we're currently in, due, as Rob will be talking about later, the reduction in contribution rates. But I think it's a little bit, we have to disclose what we receive as income, but if we were to tip every income tap and every investment into maximised disclosable income lines, you would probably not, well, you wouldn't see that reduction that's there. It's more of a reporting item.
Okay, very good. Any further questions? Turning now to the recommendations then, which we'll take one by one. Actually, there is only one. Please vote for a show of hands. It is recommended that the committee note the draft 2025-26 accounts of the Norfolk Pension Fund Appendix A and the Provincial Audit Planning Report Appendix B. All those in agreement that we have noted the outlined information in the recommendation, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, number 8, Risk Register and Compliance with Breaches Policy Report, page 213. Glenn, could you talk us through and introduce the report, please?
Thank you, yes. The fund maintains a detailed risk register, and that's in accordance with the County Council's risk management framework. And that framework evaluates likelihood and impact, and also captures mitigating actions. The scoring, the matrix scoring, is 5 by 5. So anything over a risk score of 16 is deemed to be a high risk. So in the report, we present to you our summary heat map and details of risk movements. This information is also shared with our Pensions Oversight Board. In terms of managing and monitoring risks, this activity is performed by the management team, where we will assess the score and evaluate the mitigations in place. So the presentation of our risk register is over our 3 sort of functional areas of activity: governance, funding, and pension services. So moving on to the risk movement in the last quarter, 2 risks have decreased. Now, both these risks related to resourcing, staffing. The risks were raised following the announcement of retirements of senior and experienced members of the teams, both in the governance and the pension services area. We undertook a recruitment exercise to address those vacancies, to fill those vacancies. Individuals have now been appointed in the majority of cases, and induction, training, etc. is now taking place. So for this quarter, we have reduced both those risk scores relating to resourcing, and we will continue to monitor and chart progress over time. So that's the risk movement. What we also do in the report is just bring to committee's attention our one area of high risk, which is cyber and financial crime. This has remained a red high risk for some considerable time now. It's recognised within the industry, within the financial and pension sector, that pensions is a prime target for cybercrime. Now, we have an ongoing programme that supports data and cyber security. where we are addressing and implementing mitigating actions. And we'll hear more on this under item 10 this morning. In addition to presenting the risk register, this report also reports on breaches, monitoring against our breaches policy. Various LGPS stakeholders, including committee, board, officers, employers, all have a duty. I think it's 2004 Pensions Act, but now encapsulated within the TPR's General Code, to report breaches and to report those breaches to the pensions regulator. These breaches must be of material significance. We have a breaches policy. We're actually in the process of updating that. Hope to bring that back to September committee, so we can certainly discuss again here. But for this quarter and for this report, there's no reportable breaches. No data protection incidents to report, and the only thing that I'd really just bring to committee's attention, just to give a little bit more detail and explanation, is one of the areas that we monitor under breaches is the late payover of employee-employer contributions by scheme employers. So that's monitored on a monthly basis. Within the regulations, employers have until the 19th of the following month to pay over contributions to LGPS funds. And the table on page 213, I believe, gives details of late payovers, late payments. But the trigger there is, are there any of material significance that would trigger a reportable breach? Now, to put that into some kind of context, if we look at the March 2026 position, total contributions received in that month were 16.8 million. To put that into further context, Norfolk County Council's contributions for the month, the employee-employer, was 6.2, and that late payover, the latest payover in that month, was a parish council. I shan't, because we're in public, say who, but that late payover was £65.82. So that's where that materiality comes into play. So really just wanted to bring your attention to that table, but no reportable breaches for this quarter. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions, please? Councillor Hannah, please. Thank
you very much. I've got a question about the risk register table on page 217. And I understand that there have been concerns around skill and people retiring. And I just wonder whether we're also monitoring the risks associated with local government reorganisation and skilled staff leaving in that context, or the risk of skilled staff leaving in that context. And then I have a second question, if that's okay, related to ESG. I see it's on the risk register, and I'm wondering what risks related to this we are monitoring.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the impact of local government review, that does feature as a risk in its own right. At this stage, it's more around the actual process, identification of options, that discovery and design phase. From a pension fund perspective, we have not identified specific LGR risks relating to resourcing. However, if we did in future, we have a separate risk, which is lack of skilled resource. So that's how we capture things like retirements, departures, etc. And those two risks that reduced this quarter were examples of that. So if there was something from a fund perspective specific to fund employers, we were concerned over LGR, its impact on our staff, we would capture that under the lack of skilled resources. In terms of impact from LGR on the pension fund, it's also worth saying that one thing we will have to monitor very closely is the impact of local government staff generally within Norfolk. Regards retirements and the impact in terms of our pension services, initially the provision of quotations and then the processing of those retirements, departures, deferreds. So there will be implications of LGR that we absolutely want to capture, both in terms of the county, the districts, but also our own staff. Your second question about ESG. So that particular risk under funding and investment really captures our responsible investment framework, of which environmental, social and governance are the main features in our investment strategy. And it's capturing the ability of our investment managers and going forward the likes of LGPS Central Pool to actually implement and deliver for us that responsible investment framework. So it's capturing that particular risk.
Councillor Butler. Oh, you had a follow-up?
If that's okay, yeah, I'm wondering whether this table already captures the risk around ESG that are associated with being pooled, or is it the current status?
It's current, yeah. So our position really at the 31st of March, as we now begin that process of winding up from access and looking at those pool solutions and how they align to our responsible investment framework, central pool solutions.
Thank you. Councillor Butler.
Yeah, it was just relating to the late payers, and I appreciate the numbers. If the parish council were to be representative of the late payers, we probably haven't got a big problem. But are we also using that as a means of identifying frequent flyers, frequent offenders, people who keep on? It may be a systems problem, a processing problem, and it could actually balloon to something bigger.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point and observation, and I think within Alex's team, we have built a really good relationship with employers. We do monitor, repeat offenders. I think the parish councils, and I think this is indicative. We often, well, I say some. I believe the majority of our parish councils still pay by cheque. Some of those cheques are only, the signatories for those cheques may be available only as and when the parish council meets. And what you could easily see is that trip from 1 month, missing that 19th because they meet at the end of the month. And so they are the examples. But I think what Alex's team has always tried to do is build those relationships. This area of work is monitored closely. As soon as we see, somebody, about to miss the deadline, it's phoning, chasing, and finding out the circumstances. But that's often what we hear back. The parish clerk isn't available until next month to sign the cheque. Thank you.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Davis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm just wondering how, and it's just from my understanding really, how you would capture, for example, it's a fast-moving world, and we have, if I can give an example, so you've got speculative investments in artificial intelligence or whatever, and there's a great reliance on that, and a knock-on effect in terms of other investments relying on that AI. How do we monitor that, and will that appear in this risk matrix?
beginning to test my knowledge of Alex's area of expertise in terms of this. Have we got a specific risk that would address that? I don't believe we do, because of the way we delegate to the investment managers that fiduciary responsibility. So that risk, if you like, is the risk of the investment manager. And is that something that we specifically monitor? No, we don't. But I don't know if, Alex, you want to sort of add to that and say any more around those sorts of examples of risk management?
Yeah, I suppose ultimately risk management in an investment portfolio, and there are always, the world always changes, I'd absolutely agree with you, be that AI, are you spending enough on AI, are you spending too much on AI, what's the ability, are there AI losers in your portfolio? I think though what we would always come back to say it really demonstrates the risk management aspect of maintaining a diversified portfolio. So you're diversified within your equity holdings, you give a maximum potential optionality to those managers in terms of looking at global markets perhaps, rather than, historically we used to be very focused on UK investment, for example. Just that opportunity set has expanded, but that frankly we haven't bet the house on red. That's always, it's a simplistic example, but had we just said, we really like 18 months ago software as a service companies, actually, if we look at and we'll see investment performance in the closed section, the frank bloodbath amongst those companies when people suddenly woke up and thought perhaps they don't have a business anymore because AI replaces what they do. I think it's that your bets are even, and that you are even both within individual portfolios and more specifically, if you look at the asset listing, we hold all sorts of different things. One of the reasons those accounts are complicated is because there are things like affordable housing and timber in there which have very, very different characteristics to a quoted equity market. So I think it's more like that, and I think in the detail of the register there are discussions around those points, but I haven't got the detail in front of me, so I wouldn't like to say it's 4.76 at this point.
Thank you. Any further questions on this section? Okay, so turning now to the recommendation, please show your vote by way of raising your hand. The Pensions Committee is invited to note the contents of the risk register and summary of breaches. All those in agreement that we have noted the contents of the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any abstentions? Any against? No, thank you. So now we turn to item 9 on the agenda. It's the exclusion of the public, items 10 to 15 only. The committee is asked to consider excluding the public from the meeting under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972 for consideration of the items below on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by paragraphs 3 and 5 of part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Act, and the public interest in maintaining the exemptions outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. The committee will be presented with the conclusion of the public interest test carried out by the report author and is recommended to confirm the exclusion. I'll now hand over to Abby.
Thank you, Chair. The reports within agenda items 10 to 15 contain financial, business and commercial information, including details about third-party company operations, which could significantly weaken their position in a competitive environment by revealing this activity to competitors. Inappropriate disclosure would be likely to prejudice their interests, which may expose the Norfolk Pension Fund and Norfolk County Council to legal action within the future. Does the committee agree to exclude the public for items 10 to 15? Please raise your hands. Perfect, thank you.